The moment a man pulls away, your instinct might tell you to chase, to question, to try and fix whatever went wrong. But that instinct is exactly what pushes him further away. Because attraction isn't about holding on tighter, it's about understanding when to let go, when to create space, and when to allow him to feel the pull back towards you. The key isn't forcing connection, it's mastering the energy that makes him realize what he's at risk of losing. And when you do that the right way, he won't just come back, he'll feel drawn to you in a way he never expected. Ladies and gentlemen, when a man pulls away, the instinctive reaction is often to panic, to chase, to seek immediate reassurance that everything is okay. But the truth is that reaction only pushes him further. The first and most important step in reattracting him is understanding why he pulled away in the first place. Men withdraw for different reasons. Sometimes it's stress. Sometimes it's fear of losing their independence. And sometimes it's simply because the initial intensity of the relationship triggered a need for space. The key is not to take it personally. It's not a sign that he's lost interest forever, or that you did something wrong. It's a natural response that many men experience when emotions start to deepen. The biggest mistake you can make is trying to force him to talk about it when he's not ready. When a man pulls back, he's often processing something internally. It could be doubts, it could be stress from other areas of his life, or it could be that he's trying to figure out what he truly wants. Pressuring him to open up before he's ready won't give you the answers you're looking for. It will only make him feel trapped, like he's being backed into a corner. That's when men shut down completely. The more space you give him, the more he starts to feel safe in the connection again. This is where most people struggle. The moment they sense distance, they go into overdrive, texting more, calling more, asking what's wrong, trying to solve a problem that may not even be theirs to solve. What happens then? He feels suffocated. He feels like he's losing control. And the only way to regain that sense of balance is to pull away even further. That's why the counterintuitive approach is the right one. Let him have the space he needs. Instead of trying to fix things immediately, shift the focus back onto yourself. There's something incredibly powerful about restraint. When you resist the urge to chase, to demand answers, to fill the silence, you send a message that you're secure in yourself. That you're not desperate for his attention, that you respect his need for space because you value yourself enough to not beg for someone's presence. And that shift is magnetic. When a man pulls away and you don't chase, you create an emotional gap that makes him start to miss you. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, he starts to wonder what you're doing, how you're feeling, why you're not reacting the way most people do. That curiosity is the first step toward him coming back on his own terms. And this isn't about playing games. It's not about manipulation. It's about emotional intelligence. Because when you truly understand how attraction works, you realize that people are drawn to what feels free, not what feels forced. If you make him feel like he has to be with you, like he has to explain himself before he's ready, you turn the connection into an obligation instead of something he genuinely wants to pursue. But when you let go, when you show that you're okay on your own, when you embrace that space instead of fearing it, you shift the dynamic completely. This is where confidence comes in, because if you truly believe in your own worth, you don't see his distance as a rejection, you see it as an opportunity to strengthen the connection in a way that's real, in a way that's sustainable. The way you handle this moment determines everything that happens next. Do you become anxious and reactive, or do you stand firm in your value? That decision makes all the difference. And here's the thing about space. When you give it to him, you also give it to yourself. You allow yourself the chance to reflect, to refocus, to make sure that this connection is truly serving you as well. Because it's not just about whether he wants you back, it's about whether he deserves to be in your life. That shift in mindset is what brings power back to you. Men don't come back because they're convinced or pressured. They come back because they feel a natural pull, a draw towards something they don't want to lose. And that only happens when you show that you're not waiting around, that you're not dependent on his presence to feel whole. That's the energy that reattracts. That's what makes him realize he doesn't want to be without you. When a man pulls away, it's easy to believe that the best way to bring him back is by convincing him, by proving your worth, by showing him why he should stay. But real attraction doesn't work that way. It's not built through effort, through over-explaining, or through trying to be what you think he wants. It's built through presence, through energy, through the quiet confidence that comes from within. That's why the most powerful thing you can do in this moment isn't to chase, it's to shift the focus back onto yourself. Because here's the truth, the version of you that he was drawn to in the beginning wasn't overthinking, wasn't doubting, wasn't seeking reassurance. It was effortless, it was confident. It was you at your best, living your life, bringing value without needing anything in return. And when that energy shifts, when you start centering your world around him, analyzing every word, every action, every moment of silence, that natural pull disappears. He doesn't feel drawn to you anymore, he feels weighed down. Not because you've changed as a person, but because the energy has shifted from attraction to attachment. This is where most people go wrong. They think that if a man is slipping away, the best thing to do is to hold on tighter. But that only makes him feel trapped. The only way to bring him back is to let go, not in a way that's cold or distant, but in a way that says, I am whole with or without you. That's what pulls a man in, knowing that you are secure in yourself, that you are living fully, that your life doesn't stop just because he's taking space. So what does that actually look like? It means doubling down on the things that make you feel alive. It means focusing on your own growth, your own goals, your own sense of purpose. It means shifting from waiting to creating. Because the reality is, when your energy is directed toward yourself, when you're improving, evolving, stepping into the best version of who you are, you don't need to chase anyone. You become the magnet. Think about this for a second. What's more attractive? Someone who is desperate for attention, or someone who is deeply engaged in their own life, passionate about what they're doing, glowing with confidence from the inside out. People are drawn to energy, to presence, to that undeniable sense of self-worth that says, I know who I am, and I don't need to beg for someone to see my value. That's the shift that changes everything. And the irony is, when you do this not for him, not as a strategy, but because you truly embrace it, he feels it. Even if you're not talking, even if you're not reaching out, he senses that shift. And that's when he starts to wonder. That's when he starts to feel the space in a different way. Because instead of feeling like he's escaping something heavy, he starts to feel like he's missing something rare. This isn't about playing games. It's not about pretending to be busy or trying to make him jealous. It's about truly embodying that energy of growth, of confidence, of fulfillment. And what happens is, when he does come back, it's not because you manipulated the situation, it's because he sees something in you that he doesn't want to lose. But here's the key, you have to mean it. You can't just say you're focusing on yourself while secretly hoping that he notices. That energy doesn't work. You have to genuinely shift your mindset from lack to abundance, from fear to strength. Because when you do, you stop looking at his distance as a threat and start seeing it as an opportunity, a chance for you to become even more grounded in who you are. A chance to build a life so fulfilling that whether he comes back or not becomes secondary. That's the real power. When you stop making him the center of your world, you step back into your own. And that's when attraction becomes effortless again, not forced, not manufactured, just real. And that's exactly what brings him back. The moment a man starts pulling away, the natural instinct is to try and close the gap, to reach out more, to prove that the connection is still strong. But that approach never works the way you want it to. The more you chase, the more you try to force things back to how they were, the more resistance you create. Because attraction isn't built through pressure, it's built through presence, through energy, through the way you carry yourself even when things feel uncertain. What most people don't realize is that maintaining a high-value presence isn't about doing more. It's not about constantly proving yourself or trying to convince someone that you're worth their time. It's actually the opposite. It's about understanding that your value is inherent, that you don't need to chase or beg or seek validation to be worthy of attention. That quiet confidence, that unwavering belief in yourself, that's what draws people in. The mistake so many people make is thinking that if they're just a little more available, a little more accommodating, a little more invested, things will turn around. But that kind of energy is heavy. It feels desperate. It feels like pressure. And nothing kills attraction faster than pressure. The truth is, a man doesn't pull away because he wants to see you try harder. He pulls away because he needs space. And the only way to make him feel safe in coming back is to give him exactly that. When you hold your ground, when you resist the urge to overcompensate, you send a powerful message without saying a word. You show that you're not waiting around for someone else to dictate your worth. You show that you are confident enough to let things unfold naturally without forcing them. And that's rare. That's what makes someone stop and think, wait a second, why isn't she reacting the way I expected? Why isn't she chasing me? What is she doing instead? That intrigue, that shift in dynamic, that's what makes him start to reevaluate everything. But this isn't about playing hard to get. It's not about withholding affection or trying to manipulate the situation. It's about genuinely maintaining your own energy, your own happiness, your own sense of self-worth no matter what's happening externally. It's about staying grounded in who you are so that whether he comes closer or pulls further away, you remain steady. That kind of presence is magnetic because most people don't operate that way. Most people get reactive. They panic. They let their emotions take control, and they end up making decisions from a place of fear rather than confidence. But when you refuse to do that, when you stand in your own power, when you maintain a light, easygoing presence instead of becoming emotionally dependent, you naturally draw someone back in. This is why chasing never works. Because the moment you start chasing, the moment you start acting from a place of fear, you shift the balance. Instead of being the person they were once drawn to, you become the person who needs something from them. And neediness is never attractive. Not because having emotions is bad, not because caring is wrong, but because the second you make someone else responsible for your sense of security, you give away all your power. So instead of seeking validation, instead of trying to prove yourself, focus on maintaining that lightness, that ease, that unshakable sense of value. When you do that, you make it easy for someone to come back to you because there's no guilt, no pressure, no heaviness, just an open, inviting space that feels good to be around. And that's the thing. People always gravitate toward what feels good, toward what feels effortless, toward what feels free. When you embody that kind of energy, you don't have to chase anything. You become the thing that's naturally drawn toward. And when that happens, the entire dynamic shifts back in your favor. When a man pulls away, the biggest mistake people make is assuming that reestablishing the connection means diving straight into deep conversations or making some grand gesture to win him back. But that's not how attraction works. You don't rebuild a connection by forcing it, you rebuild it by allowing it to happen naturally, by creating moments that feel effortless rather than heavy. That's why the key isn't chasing, it isn't pushing. It's subtly reestablishing emotional connection through light, meaningful interactions that feel good rather than pressured. The problem most people run into is they overthink this step. They assume that if they get just the right words, send just the right message, or have just the right conversation, they can make everything go back to the way it was. But attraction doesn't work like a math equation. You can't just input the right formula and expect the same result every time. People don't respond to logic when it comes to emotions, they respond to energy, to feelings, to the way interactions make them feel in the moment. And if an interaction feels like an obligation, like pressure, like a test, it pushes someone further away. But when an interaction feels light, when it carries no expectation, when it reminds them of why they were drawn to you in the first place, that's when things shift. That's why the way you engage matters so much. It's not about confronting them, asking why they pulled away, or trying to dissect the situation. It's about creating moments that feel natural, that feel easy, that remind them of the connection without making them feel like they have to justify themselves. It's sending something that makes them smile, something that reminds them of a shared experience, something that feels organic rather than calculated. It's making them associate talking to you with feeling good, not with feeling guilty or overwhelmed. And this is the part that requires self-awareness, because if your intention is secretly to get an immediate response, to see where you stand, to push things forward before they're ready, that energy is going to be felt. You have to approach this from a place of self-assurance, where the interaction is about reopening the door, not forcing them to walk through it. And that's where patience comes in. You're not trying to resolve everything in a single moment. You're just planting the seed, reminding them of the dynamic that once felt effortless. The people who handle this the best are the ones who don't make it about getting something from the other person, but instead focus on creating the kind of connection that naturally makes them want to come back. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes someone return, not because they were convinced or pressured, but because they feel drawn to something that feels good, something that reminds them of why they were there in the first place. That's the key to making the emotional connection reappear, not through force, but through flow. The biggest misconception about reattracting someone is the belief that you have to change who you are or become something different to pull them back in. But real attraction doesn't work that way. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to overcompensate. And you definitely don't need to become someone else. The most powerful way to bring someone back is by showcasing your best qualities in an authentic way. Not as a performance, not as a strategy, but as a genuine reflection of who you are when you're at your best. The reason this works is simple. When a man pulls away, it often has nothing to do with a lack of attraction or a lack of interest. It's usually something internal. His own doubts, his own fears, his own need for space. And when that happens, the worst thing you can do is start operating from insecurity, because insecurity changes your energy completely. It shifts you from someone who is magnetic and effortless to someone who is trying too hard, someone who is seeking approval instead of simply being. And the moment that shift happens, he can feel it. An attraction is built in the moments when you are most yourself, when you're in your element, when you're moving through life with confidence, passion, and purpose. That's what draws someone in, not a carefully crafted text, not a calculated move, but the energy of someone who is fully alive, fully engaged, fully content in their own space. That's what makes people stop and take notice. That's what makes them feel like they don't want to lose you. The mistake most people make in this situation is they try to mirror what they think the other person wants. They overanalyze, they adjust, they start filtering their own behavior in an attempt to be more appealing. But that kind of energy never works because it's not real. The second you start acting from a place of trying to control the outcome, you lose the effortless quality that made you attractive in the first place. And people can feel when something isn't natural, when it's being done with an agenda rather than from a place of authenticity. This is why the right approach isn't about changing yourself. It's about amplifying what's already there. It's about reconnecting with the things that make you feel confident, the things that make you light up, the things that remind you of who you are outside of this situation. Because when you do that, when you focus on bringing the best version of yourself forward, not to prove something, but because it's who you are, that's when you naturally start to draw someone back in, not through words, not through effort, but through presence, through the energy of someone who is fully themselves and fully okay whether or not someone else sees it. And the irony of it all is that when you stop trying so hard, when you stop making someone else's validation the center of your focus, that's when you become the most attractive. That's when you create that natural pull, that quiet confidence that makes someone realize what they had. Because attraction has never been about proving anything, it's about being. It's about owning who you are so fully that others can't help but take notice. That's what brings them back, not because you forced it, but because they remembered what made them drawn to you in the first place. The biggest mistake people make when trying to re-attract someone who has pulled away is thinking that once he comes back, the work is done. But attraction isn't something that happens once and then stays forever. It has to be maintained, nurtured, and kept alive through consistency. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about bringing him back for a moment. It's about creating a dynamic that keeps him drawn to you in the long run. The reason most people struggle with this is because they fall into a cycle of inconsistency. They start strong, they embody confidence, they focus on themselves, and the moment they see results, they shift back into old habits. They become overly available again, they start overanalyzing, they begin making the relationship the center of their world instead of maintaining the balance that made them attractive in the first place. And that shift is subtle, but it changes everything. Because what pulled him back wasn't just the distance, it was the version of you that wasn't seeking, that wasn't trying to control, that wasn't dependent on him for validation. Maintaining attraction is about keeping that version of you alive. It's about continuing to prioritize your own life, your own goals, your own energy, even when things seem to be going well. Because when you do that, you create a dynamic where he never feels like he's the sole source of your happiness. And that's powerful. That's what makes someone continually drawn to you, not because they feel needed, but because they feel inspired by the energy you bring. This is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think that once they've reestablished the connection, they can ease up, that they can go back to the way things were before. But that's the exact thing that causes attraction to fade again. The real key is understanding that the qualities that made him come back, the independence, the confidence, the effortless presence, have to be a constant, not a temporary strategy. It has to be something that is genuinely part of who you are, not just something you do when things aren't going well. The most attractive people are the ones who keep growing, who keep evolving, who never let themselves become stagnant. Because attraction isn't just about initial chemistry. It's about continual intrigue, continual depth, continual. That's why relationships that stay exciting are the ones where both people have their own lives, their own passions, their own sense of purpose beyond just the relationship itself. That's what keeps the spark alive, not the constant reassurance, not the constant effort to hold on to something, but the ability to bring something fresh, something engaging, something that makes the connection feel like it's always evolving rather than staying stuck in place. The reality is people are drawn to those who make them feel something real, something compelling, something that reminds them of why they were interested in the first place. And the only way to sustain that is by continuing to be the kind of person who is worth being drawn to, not just for a moment, not just for a phase, but consistently, because that's what makes attraction last. That's what makes someone stay.